From toys that actually caused adults to riot to a toy line that changed the history of action figures. We're counting down the top 25 toys of the 80s that defined millions of childhoods. Let's go. Welcome back to the channel. I'm the Padawan Collector. Subscribe to see more videos about vintage action figure history. Let's start at number 25, Muscle Men. That is the toy that destroyed my parents' vacuum. The acronym stood for Millions of Unusual Small Creatures Lurking Everywhere. Produced from 1985 to 1988, they were based on a late manga comic from Japan called Kinnikuman about intergalactic professional wrestlers and turned into a popular anime series in 1983. The Japanese Bandai company started producing 2-inch figures, and it got so popular, Mattel brought them to the USA. They were so popular in the US, they were one of the best-selling toys in 1986. But soon after this, their popularity faded away. Number 24, it's the Boglins. They were actually banned in the elementary school that I went in. That's a true story. Those and Garbage Pail Kids. Remember those? Taking advantage of the humor horror genre from movies like Gremlins and Garbage Pail Kids, they were created by Tim Clark, a former Jim Henson employee, who engineered the latex puppets to have moving arms and eyes that a child could operate with one hand. The line lasted into the mid-90s, with the resurgence in 2000 and then again in 2017. Number 23, Jem and the Holograms. Based on the cartoon that aired from 1985 to 1986. It was about a music company owner named Jerrica Benton, who was able to turn into Jem when using a holographic projection device created by her late father. The cartoon covered her adventures with her bandmates, the Holograms, as they go against their rivals, the Misfits and the Stingers. Not those Misfits. The toys came out at the same time as the cartoon, and they are still being made today, thanks in part to the 2015 theatrical film. Number 22, Starting Lineup. First released in 1988 by Kenner Toys. They were invented by former Cincinnati Bengals football player Pat McInally. They included a variety of popular sports figures from everything from baseball, football, and basketball, all the way to track and field and golf. The line ended in 2001, but since 2016 has made a resurgence. Number 21, Superpowers, released in 1984 by Kenner Toys. You know, as a kid, I never knew those existed, but here they are on this list, or else I know I would get angry tweets. What do you call tweets now? X's? Nothing like angry X's. Superpowers featured the popular DC Comics superheroes and had play features that would trigger an action when the figure's legs or arms were squeezed. Each figure also came with a mini comic book and a cutout collector's card on the back of the package, much like G.I. Joe. The original line was canceled in 1986. Number 20, Rainbow Bright. Created by Hallmark. Yeah, the same company that gives you greeting cards and the Hallmark Channel. Rainbow Bright is a magical girl who lives in Rainbow Land with her friends, the Color Kids, where all the colors of the world are created as she battles the evil Murky Dismal. The 80s toys were made by Mattel, and even though that line ended in 1987, the line would be picked up by other toy companies and are still being made today. Number 19, Indiana Jones. Based on the film by Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, Kenner started producing these toys in 1982 with 9 action figures in the line, 3 playsets, 1 horse, 1 vehicle, and 1 12-inch doll. The line started out with strong sales, but by 1983, the line had lost steam and ended that same year. You know, as a kid, I never knew those existed either. I was like shopping at the wrong Toys R Us or something. Number 18, The Real Ghostbusters. Released in 1986 by Kenner, it was based on the popular cartoon of the same name and not the actual movie series. The line would span all the way into 1991 and cover 10 waves of toys, all the way from figures to playsets and wearable accessories. The line ended due to no new live-action movies coming out and the increase from competition like other toy lines and the ever-so-popular gaming console market. Number 17, WWF Superstars. Released in 1984 by the LJN Toy Company and made popular based on the World Wrestling Federation's lineup of extremely popular wrestlers such as Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, and Rowdy Roddy Piper. By the end of the toy line in 1985, there would be a total of 64 unique figures and accessories. The final wave of action figures was actually released by Grand Toys from Canada. Number 16, Centurions. Wanting to to create a toy line from a cartoon to compete with the likes of He-Man, Kenner Toys and Ruby Spears, the masterminds behind Thundar the Barbarian and Mr. T the cartoon, created the Centurions in 1986. Set in a near-future world where humans were enhanced to fight evil with their catchphrase,
"Man and machine, power extreme."
The figures were highly detailed and came with amazing attachable accessories, but sadly, the line ended that same year. Number 15, GoBots. Based on a line of toys produced in Japan by the Bandai Company under the name Machine Robo, the line debuted in America in 1983 by Tonka. The good guys are the Guardians, the bad guys are the Renegades. They were really popular with kids, but were overtaken by the more popular Transformers, and in 1987, the line would shut down. Number 14, Thundercats. Released in the spring of 1985 by the LJN Toy Company, the Thundercats, like many of the toys on this list, were based on the animated series, which launched in fall of 1985. With heroes like Lion-O, they were humanoid cat-like aliens on a planet called Third Earth, and defend against the evil mutants of Plandar, and protect the sword that holds the Eye of Thundera. The cartoon and the toys were immensely popular, and the line was released in 3 waves. But in 1987, the line suddenly stopped. Some say because of faulty business practices of the small LJN Toy Company. Number 13, Pound Puppies. Invented by Mike Bowling in 1984, they were first sold in Canada by Irwin Toy. Tonka would distribute Pound Puppies in the USA. They were plushy. They were stuffed. They came in a cardboard-shaped doghouse with an adoption certificate. And parents loved this because, unlike real dogs, Pound Puppies don't make a mess. They were insanely popular, and the original line continued until the mid-90s, and kept on making resurgences, the latest being in 2019. Number 12, Teddy Ruxpin. And who doesn't remember those heart-tugging ads?
My name is Teddy Ruxpin.
This was a toy that got kids to read, or it was just a crutch for lazy parents to get out of not reading to their kids. Whatever it was, this toy was popular. Released by Worlds of Wonder in 1985, you pop a cassette into Ruxpin, read along, and rinse and repeat. Selling the cassettes and the books separately, that was a great business model. But Worlds of Wonder would go bankrupt in 1988, so the rights to Ruxpin would go to Hasbro, who re-released him in 1991. Number 11, Mask. Mask stands for Mobile Armored Strike Command. Released by Kenner in 1985, the Mask good guys were led by Matt Tracker, who took on Venom, which stands for Vicious Evil Network of Mayhem, led by Miles Mayhem. They were based on the animated series, and the main feature was the vehicles that changed to reveal hidden weapons or armor that could change into a completely different vehicle. The final wave would come in 1987, and the line ended in 1988. But before we get into the top 10, if you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button so you can see more vintage action figure history. Number 10, Care Bears. And who knew that staring at your opponents would knock them out cold? The Care Bears were released by Kenner in 1983, but they started as greeting cards invented by Elena Kukarik. Each bear had a belly badge on their stomach that represented their personality and would overcome their adversaries with love, kindness, and hope. We need more of that these days. Hey, let me see what my Care Bear stare would be. Okay. Movies and the animated TV series would follow and be hugely popular, selling over 40 million Care Bears from 1983 to 1987. The toys are still in production to this day, although the licensing rights have changed from company to company. At number 9, Strawberry Shortcake, the sweet smell of success. Released as a doll in 1980 by Kenner, Strawberry Shortcake actually started in the 1970s as a greeting card character, invented by Barbie Sargent, who ended up suing American Greetings in 1983, but returned the licensing back to American Greetings to continue selling the line. I agree, why ruin a good thing? The toys were insanely popular, focusing on Strawberry Shortcake and her friends in Strawberry Land, and in each character was embedded a sweet smell that matched their personality. There are so many jokes there, I won't even go there. The initial toy line went all the way into 1989, but since then, relaunches have been made. Number 8. Voltron, Defender of the Universe. Based on a toy line and cartoon series from Japan, they would be imported by the Matchbox Company and distributed in the USA in 1984, as well as the animated series. The Go Lion version would be the most popular and focuses on 5 lions controlled by human pilots to form Voltron as it battled King Zarkon to defend the planet Aris. The last vintage iteration of Voltron would be produced by LJN in 1986, but resurgences in Voltron are still being made today, with the Voltron movie being made by Amazon and starring Henry Cavill of Superman fame, which is in pre-production right now. Number 7. My Little Pony. Released in 1982 by Hasbro, My Little Pony spawned a toy frenzy that still continues to this day, with the most valuable of these toys being the vintage mail-in only ponies. The original line ran until 1982 with the help of an animated TV series, movies, and books. The toy lines made several resurgences through the decades, but in 2021, Hasbro released a 5th generation of toys that caught on and is super popular with kids today thanks to its accompanying animated series. Number 6. The Cabbage Patch Kids. Released by Coleco in 1982, they are simply cloth dolls with plastic heads. But that didn't stop kids from wanting them in the early 80s. They were originally inspired by the Little People dolls invented by Xavier Roberts. For 3 years, they broke every toy sale record. At one point, they even stopped advertising to keep up with production needs.
This was the scene in their department store in Wilkes-Barre Sunday morning.
And like the Pound Puppies, they came with adoption papers and they came with birth certificates. Coleco stopped the line in 1988 when it filed for bankruptcy, passing the license to Hasbro, then Mattel, and then several other companies had the license. Today, it's in the hands of Wicked Cool Toys. Number 5. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Debuting in 1984 as a comic book created by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. It focused on baby turtles who became anthropomorphized. They changed into a human-like form. Taught to be ninjas by a rat and battle the crime underworld. Donatello, Michelangelo, Raphael, and Leonardo. The toys would be produced by Playmate starting in 1988, and over $1 billion of toys would be sold in just 4 years, making them the 3rd best-selling toys behind Star Wars and G.I. Joe. The original line would end in 1997, but relaunches of new toys are still happening to this day. Number 4. He-Man. After Mattel famously or infamously declined Lucasfilm to produce the Star Wars line of toys in 1977, they were looking to create an IP that would compete with the juggernaut of Star Wars that were flying off the shelf. When the creators of Conan the Barbarian movie approached Mattel to design and distribute the toys, at first they agreed, but after Mattel discovered that the film would be R-rated, and knowing that the toy market was aimed at kids, they declined to produce the toys. Instead, they decided to focus on their own concepts that just by coincidence happened to be about a warrior who looked very similar to Conan the Barbarian, but wasn't. This would cause hyper lawsuits between Mattel and the creators of Conan. Mattel eventually would be legally cleared, and He-Man first debuting in 1982 and almost called the Lords of Power until the marketing department wanted a name change. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe would also be launched with an animated series as well as a comic book. Along with his friends from Eternia, they battle Skeletor and the forces of evil as they protect the secrets of Castle Grayskull. The toy line would be a major success. 7 waves of toys would be made, and with its 5.5-inch size and buff statures, it towered over the other toy lines and made them look puny. The final 2 figures in 1988 were only released in Italy and have since become highly sought after by collectors. But ever since the animated series went off the air in 1985, the line steadily took a decline, until the original line was canceled in 1988. And since then, He-Man has made resurgences over the years, with new animated series being dropped and action figures, but none of these had the pulp culture appeal of the original toy line. Number 3. Transformers. As many toys, Transformers began their existence in Japan in the early 80s called Microchange and Diaclones from the Takara Toy Company. Seeing the popularity of the toys in Japan and wanting to compete with the Star Wars line, Hasbro brought the line to America and licensed its rights. The one problem, in Japan, these toys never had a backstory. So Hasbro hired writers to write a backstory for the toys, in where the good guys, named the Autobots, were led by Optimus Prime, and the bad guys, called the Decepticons, led by Megatron, they landed on Earth after their homeworld of Cybertron was destroyed. The Autobots became the protectors of Earth against the Decepticons, and the toy line became insanely popular due to the animated series that launched the same time as the toys. If you can take a clue from all the toys released in the 1980s, they were all accompanied by syndicated animated series. This was due to massive television and marketing deregulation during the Reagan administration, in where toys, food, and other goods were able to be marketed to children on broadcast channels, even during programming. Although regulations got stricter in the 90s, they were never fully restricted as they had been in the 1970s. In 1989, the toy line would see massive drops in sales due to the release of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the highly popular video game console market. And in 1990, the original toy line would be canceled, but it would make major resurgences through the years. And they are still being made today, thanks in part to the Michael Bay movie franchise that started in 2007. Number 2. Yo Joe. First making its appearance in 1964 as a 12-inch action figure line by Hasbro, in 1982 it would be re-released as a 3.75-inch line to compete with the ever-growing Star Wars toys market share. The 1960s toy line was based on more realistic military situations, but this new line of smaller toys would focus on a story between the G.I. Joe team and the evil Cobra organization. The toy line would evolve to be called G.I. Joe Real American Hero, although the UK version of the toys would be marketed as Action Force. And it's said by the action figure collecting community that the G.I. Joe line is the hardest to collect, as there are over 500 figures and about 250 vehicles and playsets. And if you do climb that Mount Everest of collecting pinnacles, loose or carded, and in great condition, a complete collection would be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. The G.I. Joe Real American Hero line was canceled in 1994, after Hasbro relaunched the Star Wars action figures in the new Star Wars Power of the Force line. They didn't want two of their action figure lines competing with each other on the toy shelves, but new iterations of G.I. Joe toys are on the shelves these days in the form of different offerings, including G.I. Joe Classified, Sideshow, and Super 7. Number 1. Star Wars. If there was ever a godfather of modern toys, it would be the original Kenner Star Wars that debuted in 1978. Every toy company in the early 80s was chasing the coattails of Star Wars. And this may have been a negative thing, but through the success of Star Wars with a solid IP paving the way for toys, and a marketing and distribution plan that would be mimicked by every toy company and toy line, it paved the way for how cool 80s toys would be. A new wave of Star Wars toys would be released with every movie, including lines released in 1985 called The Power of the Force, and 2 toy lines based on Saturday morning cartoons with the Ewoks and Droid series. But since the last Star Wars movie was released in 1983, and creator George Lucas announcing no plans for new Star Wars movies to be produced, sales dropped sharply. And it was also in part to all the new toy lines that had animated TV shows coming out week after week to remind kids and parents that those new toys were available on toy shelves. So in 1986, Kenner officially shut down the Star Wars line of toys, until Hasbro would bring back Star Wars in a new line of toys in 1995, which collectors call The Power of the Force 2. And when The Phantom Menace debuted in 1999, it started the juggernaut of Star Wars toys all over again. But if you're a toy collector, no matter what line, you have to give a nod to the toy line that really started modern action figure collecting as we know it. And if you have these toys in your collection, whether they be from your childhood or you're an active collector today, may the Force be with you, always. What were some of your favorites on this list? And let me know your top 5 down there in the comments. And what toy line did I not include that you would have, and why? And please subscribe to the channel for more videos about vintage action figure history, like these videos being shown on your screen now. And as always, my friends, thank you, and I will see you next time.